Hello boys, welcome back to another session of online biology video tutorials. This session is meant for class 12th biology students and this is for 9th July 2021. As we all know that we are discussing and deliberating upon chapter number 3, human reproduction. In this chapter we have been discussing about male reproductive system, female reproductive system, spermatogenesis, oogenesis. These are the four broader concepts that we discussed in terms of morphology, in terms of physiology, in terms of biochemistry, and most important in terms of anatomical features. We also discussed the social implications of these. Hence, it is very important, being adolescents, that each one of you should understand the significance of it. Then you start appreciating the creation of God. Today we are going to discuss about another important concept called menstrual cycle. This is called MC, menstrual cycle. So this is basically a cyclic change in the reproductive tract of primate females. So, in primate females, there are cyclic changes in the reproductive tract of a female. These changes, cyclic changes, are called MC, menstrual cycle. And this is marked by a characteristic event repeated almost every month. To be specific, 28 days once. Maybe there will be plus or minus variations will be there depending upon the hormonal secretions in a female. And this will be in the form of the menstrual flow, that is shedding of endometrium of the uterus along with the bleeding. And once the ovulation and the menstruation stops by the time the female reaches around 40-45 years, then we say the lady has reached menopause. Okay? Menopause. That makes the end of fertility of the woman. So, menopause is the mark period for the closure of fertility ability of a female. Now, how does this take place? It is the cyclic events, menstrual cycle or reproductive cycle, starting from menstruation till the next during reproductive period, that is puberty to menopause. Puberty is the age at which ovulation takes place, first ovulation, or we can say a female becomes biologically matured. And menopause, the lady gets the last phase. After that, she will not be able to produce ovum. That means biologically she will become sterile. Now the duration of this, as I said, 28 days with plus or minus 2 depending upon the hormonal content. And menstrual cycle is also seen in other primates also. And what are the major events? Main ovarian cycle, uterine cycle. Ovarian cycle is changes that take place in the ovary. So you have got a left ovary and a right ovary in a female in the abdominal cavity. And the uterine cycle, changes that take place in this bag-like structure, uterus, and in this canal, vagina. Okay? And we, for convenience sake, we divide this into 4 phases. First one is the menstrual phase, that is 1 to 5th day. You can see here menstruation. Normally it is given red, 1 to 7, but normally it is 1 to 5th day. The menstruation takes place. And the second phase is follicular phase, that is 5th to 13th. You can see here 5th to 13th is the follicular phase. Follicles will start developing. Remember, we said the primary follicle, secondary follicle, tertiary follicle, graphene follicle. Remember when we were talking about the anatomy of ovary. So this duration, 5th to 13th day, the various follicles will be formed and then ovulated. So this is important. On 14th day, the functional ovum will be breaking off itself from the graphene follicle and comes out of the follicle. We call this as ovulation. So the ovulation may take place between 13th to 15th. So 13th, 14th, 15th day. On any day, ovulation can take place. And then the 16th to 28th, it is the luteal phase or secretory phase. Once the corpus luteum is formed, you know the function. We discussed the function of corpus luteum. It produces the female sex hormones. So this is the period where from here, so 15th to 28th day, this is the period where a lot of secretions, hormonal secretions will take place. So 1 to 5th day, the cycle starts with menstrual flow, that's bleeding. So there will be rupture of endometrial wall. Once the endometrium gets ruptured, the linking or interlinking arteries and veins will be broken, arterioles and venules will be broken, so there will be a lot of blood coming out. So there is bleeding. So the bleeding lasts for 3 to 5 days, and the bleeding from the uterine wall, endometrial wall through vagina comes off. So normally this takes place between 3 to 5 days, and in many families during these 3 to 5 days, the female will be asked to not to touch others, sometimes not to do even puja for the god, all that. But biologically speaking, all of us know that it is very natural biological phenomena that takes place. And menstruation occurs if the released ovum is not fertilized. So if the ovum is waiting here in the fallopian tube, remember isthmus junction we said. So there, if the sperm comes at that time and the sperm fuses with the waiting ovum, fertilization takes place. Okay, then menstruation will not be there. But if the fertilization doesn't take place, then menstruation continues. So it results in breakdown of endometrial lining and uterine blood vessels that comes out through vagina. Lack of menstruation indicates pregnancy. So if there is no menstruation, it is an indication that the lady is pregnant. It may also be caused due to stress, sometimes because of lifestyle, and of course poor health, and not to forget diet also. Diet is also very, very important. And next, second stage, follicular or proliferative phase. It starts from 5th day after menstruation and gets completed between 8th to 12 days. So in this phase, there is action of gonadotrophins, the hormones, follicular stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone from pituitary gland. So there is influence of FSH and LH in this phase, proliferative phase. And FSH, what is the role of FSH? It stimulates development of primary follicles. You see here the presence of primary follicle. So within the ovary, the FSH ensures the development of primary follicles into secondary follicle, secondary into tertiary, tertiary into graphene follicles. So formation of graphene follicles is because of the influence of FSH. Secretion of estrogens by graphene. Once the graphene follicles are formed, the graphene follicles will secrete female sex hormone called estrogen. And the estrogens stimulate proliferation of ruptured uterine endometrium and mucus lining of oviduct and vagina. So the moment estrogen is formed, female sex hormone, it proliferates the ruptured endometrium. This wall of the endometrium will be proliferated, as well as the mucus lining of the oviduct, this one, oviduct, as well as vagina. The development of secondary sexual characters, such as development of breasts, change of voice, the shrill voice, and then walking style, all this, and no hair in female, all this will be secondary sexual characters. And suppression of FSH secretion. So follicular stimulating hormone secretion will be suppressed, and it encourages LH, luteinizing hormone secretion. So LH, FSH attain a peak level. They reach highest level in the middle of the cycle on 14th day. So rapid secretion of LH luteinizing hormone induces rupture of graphene follicles. You can see here. So this is a precursor for ovulation. So once the graphene follicle gets ruptured, functional ovum gets released. We call it secondary oocyte. And ovulation takes place on 14th day. Again, a precaution is, it is not a rule by force that it should happen on 14th day only. Depending upon the secretions of LH and FSH, female to female, this differs. And then LH and FSH attain peak level in the middle age, as we said. And you can see here the process of ovulation. The ovulation is taking place, the egg is coming out, and it is entering into the fallopian tube, and this finger-like structures will be there, and in the fallopian tube they suck this egg, ovum. And then the fourth stage, after ovulation, once the ovulation takes place, graphene follicle is transferred into a yellow endocrine mass called corpus luteum. So once the functional ovum comes out of the ovary, enters into the fallopian tube, the remaining tissue becomes corpus luteum. And corpus luteum function is, it secretes another female sex hormone called progesterone. So degenerating corpus luteum we can see, and then there is surge of progesterone hormone. What is the function of this progesterone? It makes endometrium maximum. So just in the beginning there is loss of endometrial tissue. Now there is reconstruction. Thick endometrium becomes very thick. Vascular, lot of arteries and veins, blood supply will be there. Becomes thick and soft. Thus, the uterus gets ready for implantation. It is anticipating pregnancy. And progesterone inhibits FSH secretion, follicular stimulating hormone secretion, to prevent development of second ovarian follicle. So it ensures that there is no second ovarian follicle that takes place. If fertilization does not occur, corpus luteum degenerates. It causes disintegration of endometrium and it leads to next menstruation. All this leads to the endometrial wall losing its tissue, that results in rupture of arterioles and venules, and rupture of arterioles and venules will lead to blood flow. So blood plus the broken tissues, broken arterioles, broken venules that come out of the vagina is menstruation. So this ensures a new cycle. This is how it takes place. So if fertilization does not occur, corpus luteum gets degenerated, it causes disintegration of endometrium, as you are seeing. It leads to next menstruation and new cycle. There will be a lot of bleeding through vagina. So during pregnancy, all events of menstrual cycle stop and there is no menstruation. As we said, once the lady becomes pregnant, menstruation cycle will be stopped. That is an indication that the lady has become pregnant. And overall, if you see the influence of different hormones like FSH and LH during first day to 28th or 29th day. So through graphical representation we can see change in the pituitary hormone levels. As you are seeing here, red one FSH as well as LH. Between 13th to 15th day you can see the surge. There is a surge of FSH and LH. Similarly, that marks the ovulation. That helps in ovulation, and graphene follicle breaks, gets ruptured. Similarly, the endometrial walls also are broken. Similarly, another set of hormones you can see, estrogen and progesterone. Particularly estrogen levels, you see, the graph is growing up. So presence of high levels of estrogen again is an indication of the rupture. And the progesterone, you can see in luteal phase it is increasing. Here it is increasing, and that ensures reconstruction. Okay, and it is preparing for the next cycle. So changes in ovarian hormone levels, changes in uterus. So you have to link this with the physiological changes that take place. So basically, menstrual cycle will be marked with the two. Starter is menarche, closer is menopause. So the menarche is the first menstruation during puberty. Menarche normally happens in 11 to 12 years. Nowadays, of course, even 10-year girl also is becoming. And menstruation goes on between 12 to 50 years. That 50 years because of your computers, various lifestyles, environmental pollution. This is coming down to 35 to 40. That is the worrisome factor for many countries. And once the menstruation phase is over, now menopause, that is stopping of menstrual cycle. As I said, this menstrual cycle normally it should stop at 50, but this age is coming down. Hence, we need to have normal lifestyle without any stress, and to ensure that the physiology as well as the anatomical features continue to take place. It is the three factors that will decide. Factor number 1 is the diet, factor number 2 is the lifestyle, and factor number 3 is de-stressing oneself. So if these three are followed, then there will be not much